interventional nephrologist, starting from angioplasties, AV fissuras, even cystoscopies, stenting, everything he is doing, minus kidney transplant. And he has an immense experience, excellent clinician and academician. And I had the opportunity to share with him in one of the DNB exams. And I was really impressed the way he used to teach also while he was taking the exam. So with this introduction, I request Dr. Mohan Rajapurkar to start the clinical case today. We have been doing it every Monday, and in fact, this is being attended by more than 100 DNB and DM students all over country. And it is very useful. The feedback is excellent. And that's why we have continued it every Monday morning, 9 to 10:30. Dr. Mohan Rajapurkar, sir.
Thank you very much for having me. And you could have introduced me in one word that I'm a good friend of yours. Right. Now, one thing is that we have many disturbances. So those who are their mic, that disturbance becomes much less. So,
Naveen, can you just mute all others other than the speakers? Yeah, you can continue, sir.
okay, so now I think we will go on with the clinical presentation, and whosoever is doing that presentation, I forget the name, but he's most welcome. And
Dr. Ishan, sir. Dr. Ishan Parekh.
okay, the thing is that we will go as going in an exam. Only thing, interest to time again with questions and supplementary. So, that
unable to hear you, sir.
calls of whatever you are presenting. So now you can go ahead and make your presentation.
Yes. So, good morning, sir. So I'm starting my case presentation. 52-year-old male patient, Mr. RJ, residing at Dadar, businessman by occupation, with a known case of diabetes mellitus, chronic kidney disease, and maintenance hemodialysis. He is currently asymptomatic and has come for routine hemodialysis session.
1 minute. 1 minute. 1 minute. Now,
Yes.
when you are making a presentation, it is that yourself heard clearly to the examiner. The examiner does not have too much in be careful about what you're saying. Your diction, your presentation should make sure that you are clear to the. And I think I again request all participants who are not actually speaking or presenting mute their mics. Okay, Ishan, go ahead.
Yes, sir. He is currently asymptomatic and has come for routine hemodialysis session. History of presenting illness. I would like to date back my history 8 years back in 2011, when he developed boil over the right groin and went to his local doctor. He was given some medication, but did not got relief. So he went to another doctor where he underwent small operation, probably incision and drainage, and was advised a blood test. He was then detected to have high blood sugar level of around 350 milligram per deciliter. He was started on injection insulin because of his recent infection raised blood sugar level, and then after 1 month was switched over to oral medication. But because of the because of OHA, he started developing abdominal discomfort and diarrhea. So he was again switched back to the insulin, and since then he is on insulin. Then he was on regular medication and follow-up, but he used to miss his insulin doses in between. His blood sugars were used to be around 170 to 250 milligram per deciliter. In 2015, he started developing bilateral fidel edema. No complaint of hematuria.
Ishan, please wait.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Describe to me how the diabetes was detected. Then you
Sir.
told you went from doctor to doctor.
Yes, sir.
How does this help you to make a diagnosis of today's situation? Whether you went to GP, whether you went to this fellow or that fellow, how does it make any difference to your diagnosis today, or to arrive at a course of management today. So I think in an exam, when you're presenting a case, you
Yes, sir.
should not time in unnecessary detail. At the same time, necessary detail must be included. So when you're talking of diabetes, what are the necessary details that you must say whether they are present or not present? Much before the pedal edema appears in a diabetic, there are certain things that you need to establish for you to arrive at a diagnosis finally. Now you have started going to a situation from 8 years back to now you are saying that this person has got a pedal edema.
Yes,
But
sir.
before that pedal edema, you established that he went from doctor to doctor, but did not establish to me what were the complications of diabetes that he was likely to or have experienced. So therefore, when you come to discussion of the diagnosis, I'll put you in great difficulty as to tell me what are the important things that you missed out there. So tell me what are the important things that you would want to know during that period of time when the diabetes was detected to the time.
Sir, I will like to other complications of diabetes, which but he's too early to develop now. But he might develop other complications like autonomic neuropathy. Then
So therefore, Ishan,
yes,
things which happen in most diabetics if they follow a natural flow. That
yes, sir.
complications of microvascular disease and macrovascular disease will affect a diabetic
Yes, sir.
before he develops, say, renal involvement. I'm
Okay,
not
sir.
saying that it cannot happen that the renal involvement came before.
Yes,
But
sir.
it is important for you to show that you know that you are looking for micro and macrovascular complications as being present or absent. So you need to tell this because if you don't tell that, how do I judge that you know about it?
Okay, sir.
You get my point?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes,
Here I
sir.
will go from either macrovascular or I will go from microvascular and explain that these were present, these were not present, they were checked, they were not checked. And I don't think it's the matter of what the previous doctors did or did not do.
Okay.
It's for you to find out whether that those complications were present in that particular patient or not. So in a presentation, when you're talking of a patient who's a progressive thing, now he has come to you for a routine follow-up of maintenance hemodialysis.
Yes, sir.
Trying to look for what might have been the cause of his native kidney disease. Now, you will be asked about what the native kidney disease are. Now, if you went like this, he developed edema and then he developed vascular access failures and then he was on dialysis. That doesn't explain anything, nor does it give me any glimpse of your thinking and your knowledge. So therefore, this is the time to explain all this. Do you get
Okay.
my?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, sir, he has no other diabetic complications from macrovascular disease like at that time ischemic heart disease or stroke or peripheral vascular disease or microvascular complications like retinopathy, nephropathy or neuropathy at that time, sir.
No. How did you ask this history to the patient? Did you have neuropathy?
No, sir. I have not. I have asked in the form of tingling or numbness or burning sensation in the foot, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So then
And
you
sir,
should, rather than making editorial comment that he
Yes.
didn't have any micro or macrovascular disease,
okay.
there will be important symptoms that he will have. And those symptoms were present or not present is what you have to bring out. Now, if you're going to say that he did not have any macrovascular disease, then I'm bound to or likely to ask, how much does he walk? Do you know that? How much did he walk in those days? Was he doing some regular exercise?
No, sir. I don't think any regular.
No claudication. See my point?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Make this editorial statement that he did not have micro or macrovascular disease does not tell me what all you asked.
Okay.
So in a macrovascular, you will have to talk of angina, of non-ischemic heart disease, of peripheral vascular disease, and of strokes. In microvascular, you will have to start from the eye, go up to the bladder, and peripheral nerves and autonomic nerves are spatial. So therefore, on each point, there are certain typical symptoms that a diabetic gets. So it is imperative that you tell us that these are the important things that I asked and they were present or not present.
Okay. Yes.
Only then it becomes clear to me whether you look for macro and microvascular disease. You have to understand that each of that complication can kill that patient. It has a bearing on the mortality. And therefore, not asking those things or not making it an important part of your presentation is a big lacuna in an exam. So I will again go on asking you on that only when it comes to discussion. Do you realize what I'm saying?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Come to that edema thing.
Yes. Sir, in 2015, he started developing a bilateral pedal edema. No complaint of hematuria, oliguria, rashes, joint pain, calluses.
And one more thing. If you expect your examiners to put the chronology in their mind, you started with 8 years back and now you're telling me 2016. So how do you expect me to do the counting of how many years was this and how many years was that? How much time went on before he developed this edema? Then I don't think I have much incentive to do that as an examiner, do I? It's for you to put everything in a chronologic sequence, a temporal sequence of any disease progression helps with the pathophysiology. And hence it is important that you put this chronologic order in a proper way. You can't say that at the age of so much, then in 2016, then in 2 months back. 3 different ways of saying the time, whether it is right or wrong is not the important thing. What is important is that you have to convey the temporal sequence of events so that the background pathophysiology understood. So therefore it is important that you do it that way. Am I making it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, go on.
Sir, in 2015, 4 years after he diagnosed with diabetes mellitus, he started developing bilateral pedal edema. No complaint of hematuria, oliguria, rashes, joint pain, alopecia, sore throat, fever. At that time, he was evaluated and found to have serum creatinine of 2.5 milligram per deciliter. And for that, he got admitted in the hospital for the same. And he was told that the cause of the raised creatinine was due to the diabetes, and he was managed conservatively for the edema fits. And he was then sir, he was on regular OPD. At that time, he didn't remember any.
Wait.
Yes.
Now here you have got this patient who was diabetic for 4 years before he started getting edema.
Yes, sir.
Make it very clear to me as to how the edema appeared. One day it was not there, the next day morning it started, or it went on gradually increasing. That is one. Secondly, over what period of time this edema became apparent and he took medical advice. Also, so if such a patient had come to you at that point of time, what would be your thoughts? Tell me, if you were the treating doctor at that point of time, what would be your thoughts? What would be the differential that you are thinking in your mind at this point of time?
So, sir, he didn't remember the actual duration, how it appeared, but he told me that apparently for 1 week, he was having pedal edema, and but it was gradually progressive.
Therefore, it was an insidious onset over 1 week.
1 week, sir. Yes, sir.
And diabetic was for the 4 years.
4 years.
And you're not given me any reason to suspect or know what sort of diabetes control was there in those 4 years. That you not told me. So if such a story is there, what are the diseases that you are thinking at this point of time in this patient?
Sir, because the edema fit and the deranged creatinine developed within 4 years of after starting the diabetes, sir.
Wait. It's not 4 years. You told me the story is 1 week.
Yes, sir. The story of edema fit is 1 week. Yes, sir. Yes.
So that in a 4-year diabetic, if he gets edema, does it necessarily mean that it is happening for the 4 years?
No, sir.
Then what are the diseases that come to your mind in such a diabetic who starts getting edema in 1 week and is detected to have fairly compromised GFR? So if you had to put a differential diagnosis in your mind at this stage, what are your thoughts?
So it can be, sir, it is presented like a nephrotic syndrome, sir. So he presented with like nephrotic syndrome, probably maybe because of the diabetic kidney disease, or he.
Wait. See, again, when you're talking of something like this, in a diabetic individual is not prohibited from getting glomerular disease. Talking of nephrotic syndrome is not the same as diabetic nephropathy. Nephrotic syndrome is a specific syndrome which can be primary glomerular disease, which can be secondary glomerular disease. Do you believe this is nephrotic syndrome? Why would the creatinine be 2.5 then? By definition, nephrotic syndrome will not have a creatinine of 2.5. So why did you utter that word nephrotic syndrome? This is exactly how you guys may tell the examiner, "Aabal mujhe maar." Why did you say nephrotic syndrome? So your question here is, you'll have to dissect in your mind whether this is diabetic or this is non-diabetic kidney disease. If it is a non-diabetic kidney disease, which is more likely, diabetic kidney disease or non-diabetic kidney disease? It has appeared within 4 years of diabetes, of which control you did not tell me. Now, if such an edema has happened in 1 week's time with increase in creatinine, 2.5, 50% or more drop in GFR, what are the things you're talking of? Is it more likely to be non-diabetic or is it more likely to be a diabetic kidney disease? If it is non-diabetic kidney disease, what is the syndrome? And then what are the most likely things? If you don't put it in a sequence like that, you'll find it extremely difficult to defend yourself in an exam. Do you realize that, Ishan?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, try to think in your mind, and what differential diagnosis would you think if this patient had come to your consulting at this point of time? What are your thoughts?
So since the onset is only it's 1 week and deranged function, it can be because of non-diabetic kidney disease, sir.
Yes.
And
Which
yes,
one?
sir. Yes, sir. So it can be because he has a deranged function with edema. So he can be have a MCD with the AKI because of in collapsing. Sir, please unmute, sir.
Okay. How often does a minimal change affect a 50-year-old man, a 45-year-old man at that point of time, as minimal change presenting as AKI without any reason? Is that the first likely thing that you think of? See, you got sidetracked in your presentation because you did not think about this aspect. You did not put that differential diagnosis while you were preparing to make this presentation. Do you understand? Because the moment you got confused into a nephrotic syndrome, you're getting into one-track nephrotic syndrome. What could it be? An MCNS with AKI. Now, why would an MCNS get an AKI without you giving me any story of massive diuresis or any such thing, or hypotension, or having taken any drugs? You didn't take any of that. You did not describe it. So how does your first diagnosis become nephrotic syndrome with AKI? See my point? Now you are in difficulty, isn't it? Why are you in difficulty? Because you did not think on it in a systematic manner. Now, if you're talking, then you started telling me about already existing renal function compromise in a patient who developed this proteinuria now. Now, the moment you say that, I'm going to ask you what makes you think that there was a renal function deterioration beforehand. You gave me no reason to think that. So now, in an exam by this time, you would be shaking that I made such a horrible mistake. What will happen to me? So don't start thinking like that. Now think again. I have given you a chance to think that if this patient had come to you in your consulting room at this point of time, referred by his GP that he has got a swelling, sir, is sent to you for the last 1 week. So what thoughts come to your mind? Based on that, your yes history and no history will come. Glomerular disease, I mean, if we are talking of non-diabetic disease, what glomerular disease produces 2.5 creatinine within 1 week? In a 45-year-old man who happens to be a diabetic. Okay, go on with your presentation, but in an exam, you need to be very clear. Your thought process must become apparent to the examiner. That is the reason we give you marks. Otherwise, everything, the diagnosis, everything has been told to you by the patient himself. So what more are you going to do? Okay, go on with your presentation.
So, 1 month after this admission, he was he was unable to pass urine, sir. So he was again admitted, and police catheter was inserted, sir. And at that time, USG, he remembered that the USG abdomen was done. It was showed that there is presence of urine in the bladder. So after passing the catheter, he passed urine. After 15 days, sir, catheter-free trial was given, but again he was having difficulty in pass urine, so catheter was reinserted, sir, after 15 days, sir. This went for 1.5 months, and during that period, he remember some invasive test was done by putting catheter, and tablet tamsulosin was started for the same, sir. And he was also told to do that CIC, clean intermittent catheterization, whenever he feels like urine is not coming. So he did a CIC only once, and after that he was able to pass urine normally, sir. Then he was again on regular follow-up, and this time his creatinine was increased to 3.5 to 4 milligram per deciliter, sir. So during that time, he was also complaining of blurring of vision. So he went to ophthalmologist and was told that he has changes of diabetes in his eyes, sir. And he was also complaining of difficulty in climbing stairs and getting up from sitting position, but no other complaints of the tingling sensation or burning sensation in the feet, sir. In December 2017, he went to his village native place and developed fever with chills, sir, during that time, sir. No complaint of cough or burning, ulceration or gnawing pain at that time. So he again got admitted into hospital, and his creatinine has increased to 7 milligram per deciliter, sir. His creatinine increased 7 milligram per deciliter. He was again managed conservatively. The cause of fever was not known, but he got better and was discharged after 1 week of after 1 week of the admission. And again he was a regular follow-up. During that time, his creatinine was used to be around 6 to 7 milligram per deciliter. So 9 months after, in September 2018, sir. In 18, he again noticed decrease in urine output and started developing again pedal edema, sir. His urine output was gradually worsening and again started developing pedal edema, sir. So he again got admitted, and this time his creatinine increased to 14 milligram per deciliter, and he has reduced his weight. It was around 90 kilos, sir, when he was well. Now it is reduced to 77 kilos, sir. And now the HT catheter was inserted in the right side of the neck, and hemodialysis was initiated, sir. During the same admission, left elbow fistula was made, sir. He was started on a maintenance hemodialysis, and his fistula did not mature, sir, and was on temporary HT catheter for almost a year, sir. And there was no evidence of any infection or fever during that period. and he was on regular erythropoietin iron injection, sir. He has taken all the vaccinations during that period. His weight also increased after starting the dialysis to 87 kilograms, sir. And because he is having previously, as I mentioned, he was having difficulty in climbing stairs. Now it has gradually worsened, and he was walking with walker during that time, sir. And when he used to come to the dialysis unit, sir. But rest there was no other intradialytic complications like cramps or hypertension during the dialysis. So, sir, after 1 year of starting hemodialysis, sir, in October 2019, his HD catheter was removed, and right tunnel cuff catheter, Comcat, he told me like this, was inserted, and during the same admission, some for the fistula, some angiogram, probably fistulogram was done during the same time, sir, when the right tunnel cuff catheter was getting inserted, and he was told that there is a narrowing of the draining vein, sir. So now then thereafter he was on dialysis with the right tunnel cuff catheter, and after 1 month he developed some shoe bite, sir, over the left foot, sir, followed by ulcer. He was managed conservatively with the dressing, but there was no improvement in the healing of that ulcer. It was gradually worsening from the sole of the foot to it was gradually increasing, so arterial Doppler, and he remembered that the Doppler and of the angiography of the same limb was done, and was told that their blood vessels are narrowed. He may require angioplasty, but due to financial constraints, he didn't undergo angioplasty, and because of the non-healing of ulcer, he underwent below knee amputation of the left lower limb in December 2019, sir. And thereafter, he is on regular maintenance hemodialysis thrice a week till date, sir. So that's my history, sir. Past history.
Okay, now, see, now that you have described this patient,
Yes, sir.
you have to come to a stage where you'll have to quickly summarize in an exam and give a differential diagnosis. So do you want to do that now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead.
Summarize, sir. A 52-year-old male diagnosed to have diabetes mellitus in 2011. He was non-compliant with the medication. In 2015, he developed pedal edema with a raised creatinine and was diagnosed to have diabetic nephropathy. And followed by which he developed retention of urine, probably due to diabetic cystopathy. And in September 2018, he gradually progressed and with deranged renal function, pedal edema, and decreased urine output, and was initiated via right HD catheter. And fistula was made. His fistula didn't mature even after 1 year, and so was put on right tunnel cuff catheter with, and he also has a complications in the form of diabetic retinopathy and neuropathy, and followed by which in October 2019 he developed ulcer in the right foot, which was non-healing because probably due to peripheral vascular disease because of DM, and underwent below knee amputation.
Okay, now what I haven't understood is, what do you think is the native kidney disease? Again, you'll be back to the same square one. What makes you think what is the kidney disease?
Sir, because sir, also with the raised creatinine, and he has other complications of diabetes, sir, in the form of diabetic neuropathy, retinopathy, and peripheral vascular disease. So he can.
All that came after the detection of edema. Before that, you didn't say anything.
Yes, sir.
So do you think it will entertain a possibility of a non-diabetic disease?
Sir, it can be a possibility of non-diabetic kidney disease also, because
Diabetic kidney disease are you thinking?
Sir, MPGN, sir, collapsing FSGN.
Why are you thinking of MPGN here?
So because
is proteinuria of a glomerular origin? What are the common diseases that happen at the age of 45, which progress to renal failure? What glomerular disease affect? Is MPGN the first category? You must have some chronology of most likely to least likely. You're talking of the least likely thing first, isn't it? So what globally you're thinking of,
Sir, FSGS.
who presented to you with edema and proteinuria, what glomerular diseases are you thinking here?
Sir, FSGS, focal segment.
One possibility. Okay, then
Sir, it can be also a membranous nephropathy, but unlikely it can present with AKI. But
what about IgA? Is that more common?
yes,
So again, you are stuck up with that nephrotic concept in your mind, isn't it?
yes,
That's why you problem to. Okay. Now you said he has diabetic cystopathy. Why are you calling it diabetic cystopathy?
sir, because in patients of diabetes, they have
No. In this patient, why did you call his bladder problem a diabetic cystopathy? Don't give me the theory of in diabetic patients is that. In this patient, why? What makes you think that he had diabetic cystopathy?
sir, because sir, he was sir,
Basically, what you need to know is how will diabetic cystopathy present to you?
yes.
Tell me.
Sir, they have decreased sensation of filling of bladder, and they have decreased lateral contractibility. So they may have voiding symptoms like decreased frequency, and also they will incomplete emptying of the bladder. So and gradually when it progress.
So Ishan, you're again mixing up everything together, isn't it? The commonest way in which diabetic cystopathy presents is asymptomatic. Those patients are asymptomatic. But here was a patient in whom somebody put in a catheter.
Yes.
And then he could not pass urine after that. Now, why couldn't he pass urine after that before he was passing before the catheter? Catheter trauma had led to this. And you did not establish that actually retention of urine, because there are doctors who will put in catheters without understanding. Therefore, just because he had a catheter and after catheter he could not pass urine does not give you the license of calling it diabetic cystopathy. So you should have told me what is the amount of urine that came out at the first catheterization. Supposing it was 800 ml when at first catheterization, more than half the bag was full when the first catheter was put in, then you can say that he had a retention of so much without he having symptoms of retention. Was this retention painful or not painful? That is an important thing you did not tell me at all during your examination. And therefore, now you call it diabetic cystopathy. How do I take it? How can you justify that? You did not tell me any other neuropathy, autonomic neuropathic symptoms and signs to say that these were associated, hence bladder would also be. So what are those signs and symptoms in a male of autonomic neuropathy?
Yes, sir. So they have the history of erectile dysfunction, sir. They have also history of. Yes, sir.
Did you ask this patient?
No, sir.
Then you didn't tell. Then what are other more common? I mean, many times, unless you don't ask, male erectile dysfunction is something which the patient may not tell you unless you are asked. So what other things that you asked to say whether such a patient had associated other signs of the autonomic neuropathy?
Sir, postural hypotension, sir. If he having feeling giddiness while standing, sir, I asked.
Did you ask and did you tell me?
Sir, I asked, but not.
Did you tell me? In your presentation, you did not bring it out. What about gut-related symptoms?
Sir, there was no history of a feeling of fullness after eating meals or nausea, vomiting, or any. No.
You and me also feel fullness when we eat. What is that? What is gustatory sweating? What is incomplete emptying of stomach? You bring out food that is eaten long time ago. Then what is explosive fecal incontinence in a diabetic? Those are the gut related symptoms. What are the symptoms related to sweating?
So they have a hyperhidrosis in the upper limb and anhidrosis in the lower limb, sir. They become sympathetic dysfunction.
So Ishan, therefore, I'm trying to say that you should have brought out all these before making a diagnosis of diabetic cystopathy straight away. You did not give me any indication to say that he had associated autonomic neuropathy or not, because you didn't ask for it. Okay, then you said that he underwent some invasive test after he was unable to pass. What test would that be?
So he remember it was a urodynamic study, sir.
Very good. So tell me, what are the components of urodynamic study?
So
Supposing you have sent this patient for urodynamic study, when you get back the report, what are the things that you look for in it?
there is a
What is your practice? You say refer to urology or you look at the urodynamics report?
so we will say the urodynamic report.
Okay, so what are the components of a uroflowmetry? Tell me.
Uroflowmetry is a volume of urine voided, sir. Average flow, Qmax, and time required to to reach the Qmax, sir. That is a component of, and also PVR, post-void residue, sir. Of the yes,
So that is uroflowmetry.
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Diabetic nephropathy.
Yes, sir.
What do you expect in a diabetic nephropathy?
So that I expect diabetic nephropathy with the increase of post-void residue, sir. There, because the incomplete feeding of the incomplete yes.
Because you did not tell me completely about uroflowmetry. In uroflowmetry also, you need to know when was the sensation of urination that came, and was after the first sensation of urination, could the patient hold the urine at all or not? Get my point?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So then what are the other curves of the cystometry? How many curves do you get in a urodynamic report?
Three.
Three curves, yes, correct.
Three curves. So pressure, that is a pressure curve, sir. Volume and
Directly measured or it's measured?
compliance. Yes, sir.
Is detrusor pressure directly measured or it is measured indirectly?
So it is measured indirectly, sir.
Yes. So what are the ones which are directly measured?
So intra-abdominal pressure
And
and vesical pressure, sir. Vesical pressure.
correct.
And we minus that, we get detrusor pressure.
Again, you will get components. Components of continence and then of voiding.
Voiding.
Now, what is the last component of urodynamics?
One
more important component of urodynamics.
Compliance. Compliance.
No. That is the system. One more. Just looked at the flow, you looked at the bladder, meaning the detrusor function, but you have not looked at one important aspect of the micturition function as yet. How are you continent?
So external urethral instance.
External or internal?
Sir, internal.
Are you sure? Are you sure? External or internal? How do you do that?
I'm not sure.
What about electromyogram of the sphincter? EMG of the sphincter?
Yes, sir. EMG, sir.
Important part you missed out.
Yes.
Finally, you will also have to look for urethral pressure profile. Urethra itself is an important part of continence mechanism.
Yes, sir.
do urodynamics, you need to know all these components and then finally to interpret it. Okay. Now, how do you interpret this weight loss that this patient had?
Sir, if weight loss, sir, because of the I can attribute it. He might have weight loss because of lack of appetite or
Did you tell me his food intake became very much less?
yes, sir.
Did you tell me that his food intake was lost during this time, appetite?
Sir, I have not mentioned that he.
So then how do I uremia only? He might have developed a serious infection during this time and lost weight, or might have developed a malignancy and lost weight. You gave me no reason to understand. You assume anything intuitive rather than deriving. See, you have to arrive at a diagnosis. Your intuition may be right, doesn't mean you're right. See the difference? One
Yes,
is arrived at a diagnosis based on taken history, then we get physical findings later on. That is how you arrive at a diagnosis. You're doing intuitive diagnosis. That this fellow ultimately went on to dialysis. So what is there to say? Weight loss must have been due to uremia. That is how you have arrived at this diagnosis. And therefore, you will have great difficulty in an exam because I'm going to make you tell me everything that why you did it. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
yes.
Now, this fellow had right IGV catheterization. So do you know, do you yourself do right IGV catheterization?
Yes, sir. Right.
How many have you done?
Almost more than 100.
Blindly.
Yes, sir. USC guided, sir.
USG guided, very good. What probe do you use?
Sir, vascular probe, sir.
What is vascular probe?
Yes, sir.
What is vascular probe? What hurts?
Sir, I don't.
Machine, which machine?
Sir, we have a BK machine, sir.
Brulin care. So what is the Brulin care vascular probe's frequency? Don't know.
Don't.
Now, what do you see on that Brulin care? How do you identify the relationship between IJV and the carotid artery?
Sir, we keep the probe, sir. We for the if it is a vein, sir, it can easily compress, sir. While we put the probe, even, sir, we can do a Doppler, sir, and we can see the flow pattern, sir. If the carotid artery, there will be a pulsatile flow.
The IJV also has a pulsatile flow. AC and V waves are there.
Yes.
And particularly in a renal failure, which is a full vein, you will see pulsatile flow there also. What is the color when you say, I can put Doppler and decide? How do you know it is going towards the heart or coming towards your transducer? Which color is which?
Sir, which is going away from the transducer is red and coming towards blue.
Going away from your probe.
Yes, sir.
How do you know the blood flow is away from your probe? You will get one blue color and you will
Blue
get
color.
one
Red.
Is vein blue and artery red?
Sir, the color is doesn't depend upon the vein or red, sir. It can be.
Oh, correct. So now when you are putting your transducer on the IJV,
Yes, sir.
which is the vein color and which is the artery color? I just know it intuitively, is it? See, this is what. Okay, fine. So what needle do you use for puncturing the vein? Tell me the
use 18 got 7 centimeter needle, sir.
peculiarity about its bevel. Is your intramuscular injection needle bevel?
Yes, sir. Sir, I don't know what is peculiarity of it. Sir, I couldn't hear. Yes.
And what is the peculiarity of the bevel of that needle?
Yes. Sir.
What is the peculiarity? Okay, what guide wire do you use?
Stainless steel guide wire. Sir.
Uh-huh.
70 centimeter and 0.035 inch.
0.035.
Yes, sir. Yes.
What are the tips?
So it's a J tip
J and floppy.
floppy. J and floppy.
Okay. Now, how do you know that your guide wire is in right direction?
Sir, we can see by putting the probe, sir, and we can see that the guide wire will go in.
Your guide wire is going into the subclavian and not down straight towards the RA. How will you know by the probe?
Sir, if it is going to the heart, patient might have arrhythmia also. That also is a sign that we are in the.
Wait. Do you wait for a arrhythmia to know that?
No,
it is?
sir. No, sir. We don't wait for the arrhythmia. We don't wait.
I'm saying that with a probe, can you see whether your guide wire is going into the subclavian? Now that you're talking of my probe is, my wire is going in the vessel by a Doppler. Tell me, how do you say that it is going straight to the heart and not towards the subclavian? Therefore, you require a fluoroscopy.
Fluoroscope. Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
What are the types of tunnel cuff catheters that you know?
Sir, we use a palindrome, sir. Palindrome catheter. And most we still yes, sir. It is a
What is important, Ishan, for you and all your colleagues in the audience to know is that if you're going to use an instrument,
yes, sir.
or something which you do day to day, you need to know the details. You need to understand the principles behind what you're using so that
Yes,
you
sir.
can troubleshooting in case of a problem. I'm trying to demonstrate to you that you guys do it with not much mind into it. You do it just because you have to do it and get over it for the day. You take whatever instrument that comes to given to you by your sister, never bother to find out what instrument you used, what are the other ones available, what are the advantages of each. And I expect somebody who is at a post-postgraduate level to understand and realize that every investigation that you do, you must know the principles of it, you must know the limitations of it, and all other things around it. Otherwise, in a problem, in routine, everything is fine. In case of a problem, you will not know how do you do the troubleshooting. Am I making myself very clear?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Right. Now, one point you said that this patient was non-compliant. Now, what do you mean by non-compliance and what are the causes of non-compliance? Non-compliance is an extremely important aspect of medicine in my mind, not only for example, for day-to-day life. And my personal belief is non-compliance, except in financial situation, is physician failure. I would like to know your thoughts.
Sir, in the non-compliance in the form, this patient, sir, we used to miss his like insulin doses, sir, in between, sir. In the sir, he doesn't. In another thing, sir, he didn't know his HbA1c any reports, sir, which I could, which also makes me think that he is non-compliant. But only one thing from the history I could find it out that he used to miss his insulin doses, sir, and his sugar around always used to be around about 200 milligram per deciliter, sir. So
Why was it important for you to know?
yes, sir.
Why was his sugar control important for you to know?
So because the all the complications of diabetes are because of the uncontrolled. The most common is the uncontrolled blood sugar level, sir. So yes, sir. So
Tell me what is the evidence that says good glycemic control reduces or prevents complication? What are the evidence for that?
So DCCT trial, sir, in type 1 and type 2 DCCT trial and type 2 so UKPDS trial, sir. They
Okay, tell me main components of UKPDS study.
Sir, UKPDS study was done in type 2 diabetes mellitus, and it was a two-arm, sir. Intensive blood sugar control less than 7 HbA1c, and standard blood sugar standard diabetes control. So in patients who and UKPDS study, because of the intensive blood sugar only less than 2% per year, patient progress from normal to microalbuminuria, micro to macroalbuminuria. And there was
Wait, does that happen in type 2? You're talking of UKPDS. Is the progression from micro to macro shown in UKPDS? Or is it in the IDDM kind of diabetes? Are there any other studies of sugar control leading to better outcomes in diabetes other than DCCT and UKPDS?
so Kumamoto advanced and VADP trial, sir, which have shown that a better control of diabetes will.
For all of you, apart from Ishan also, all other PGs, understand this, that all of us talk of diabetes control and blood pressure control. In an exam, I would make you tell me how you would tell your diabetic patients and your blood pressure patients of how their home monitoring would be. What are your consultations in terms of diet, exercise? What kind of monitoring are you going to advise them? And for each, what is your at least landmark trial things? When you're talking of a trial, you must say where it was done, what were the basic number of participants or enrollment. Then you must say, is it multicentric or single center? Then you must say what sort of a follow-up, what were the primary and secondary endpoints, and finally, what was the complication. After that, you will certainly be asked about what were the limitations of those trials. So therefore, my suggestion to all of you is that read all glycemia control trials, read all, see, you take any topic, say post-transplant, say glomerulonephritis, say lupus, the landmark trials you must know in these details. Where was the trial done? Number of enrollment, primary endpoint, secondary endpoint, what was the conclusion, and what were the limitations of that trial. Now, there are several journals, AJKD gives that course curriculum kind of a publication every time where you can find these, and there are several review articles. But when you read the review article, make sure that the major landmark trials that have been mentioned in that, you must go to the original publication. Can you tell me how many UKPDS publications are there? 2, more than 5, more than 10, none of the above. Take your choice.
Sir, more than 5, sir. I don't know, sir.
Sir, what happens is that we think that we already know all this. Why do we need to go to the evidence, correct? And that is something which will cut a very sorry figure when you are in an exam. Am I making it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now come to the, why did the fistula not mature?
So because he was already he has a diabetes, sir, which is.
So diabetes fistula doesn't mature, is it?
No, sir, this is one of the reason. He also has a history of peripheral vascular disease, sir. So in the form of amputation. So PVD, sir, itself.
You already had PVD. So you should have brought out ischemic nephropathy in your early diagnosis also of a non-diabetic disease, which you did not bring out at all.
Yes.
So when you're talking of fistula non-maturation, then you'll have to start by saying, and which is what I would have expected you when you do the examination of this patient, to show that you have shown, is there an arterial sufficiency to the fistula? See, if you looked at Dr. Tushar Vachrajani's atlas and things like that, he says the fistula starts from the heart and ends back into the heart.
Yes,
So
sir.
is it good enough to pump enough blood into the fistula? if the arterial tree from aorta down to the radial artery, which is where the fistula was made, is adequately done or not, properly there or not, and if the radial palmar arch sufficient or not. Then you have to consider there is a juxtaanastomotic stenosis, body of the fistula stenosis, or central stenosis. And for each, your examination of fistula would be important. So when you come to the examination of this patient, which is what I'm going to ask you to do now,
Yes, sir.
I will carefully listen to you of how you have examined the fistula. Chalo, come on, let's do the clinical examination of this patient.
Sir, fistula, sir. Sir, on in fistula, sir, on inspection, sir, first
No. Now,
directly start with examination.
we've discussed the clinical history.
Yes,
We've
sir.
discussed what happened to this patient. We come to some differential diagnosis, which
Yes,
you
sir.
and me may be different. So now you examine this patient as he came today. Now he is on maintenance hemodialysis, that you have to remember, that his fistula has not matured, that you have to remember, and now you examine the patient. In an exam, I won't give you this background. I would let you make your mistakes and then put you down in them to try and correct it at that time. So while you're presenting, you must learn all this. Okay, come on, go on, examine.
Sir, examination, so general examination, patient is conscious, cooperative, and well-oriented into time, place, and person. Pulse is 82 per minute in right radial artery. Regular equity on both the sides. Peripheral pulses, sir, in both the lower limbs. Only femoral arteries pulse is palpable. Rest pulses are not palpable, sir, in the both lower limbs, sir. Then, sir, BP, blood pressure, sir. Blood pressure is 130 by 80 in right arm and sitting position. And sir, no other pallor, edema, etc. Sinuses, lymphadenopathy, clubbing. Sir, in the
You took blood pressure only in the right hand
sir, in the left, in the
position.
yes, sir.
You took blood pressure in right hand and no other place, and you did not make him stand up. Did you take it
Sir,
only?
he was, sir, when I took the blood pressure, sir, this dialysis session was going on, sir. So that's why I couldn't take the blood pressure standing position. I would like to take the blood pressure standing position.
Shan mentioned that before you started saying, because you completed your blood pressure and you went further on. You realize what I'm saying? In an exam, the patient will not be on dialysis when you're doing this. So if you measure blood pressure in the fistula arm, I would ask you. If you did not standing position, I will ask you. If you did not in leg, I would ask you. Because all these are relevant to the patient's well-being and mortality. So therefore, if this is the patient you are presenting and you examined him while his dialysis session was going on, I would have suggested that for this important thing, you should have examined him after an hour of completing of the dialysis. If he is coming to you only, there is no reason why you should go and examine him only during dialysis and not afterwards. Something what I would have expected you to do.
Sorry.
Okay, go on. Aage bolo.
So there is a general examination. There is a skin is quite dry and cracked, sir, over the right lower limb, sir. And sir, fistula examination, sir. On inspection, sir, on fistula, no swelling, redness, discharge present at the fistula site, no dilated veins present over the chest. Arm elevation test is not possible, sir, because I was not able to see the draining veins, sir. So, sensor on palpation, fistula is soft and compressible, freely present over the fistula, and a pulse is augmented on a pulse augmentation test, sir. Sir, on auscultation, bruit is present over the fistula both during systole and diastole, but only up to 5 centimeters beyond the fistula and not beyond that, sir. In the fistula examination.
Why is it not mature? Why is the fistula not mature?
Sir, there are So one is it can be surgical techniques which can little non.
You're not allowed to make editorial comments here. You have to talk of this fistula. What makes you think that the arterial sufficiency is there? Did you palpate all the arteries of the hands, both sides? Did you take blood pressure on both sides?
So I palpate the artery on both the sides, sir. Both the
Is the ulnar felt?
yes, sir. So ulnar was felt, sir.
On both?
Ulnar, yes, sir. Yes.
What was the Allen's test like?
Sir, Allen's test was in right.
You did the Allen's test?
Yes, sir. The Allen's test was normal, sir, in the right upper limb.
And where's the fistula, right or left?
So it's a left, sir.
So why did you do it in the right then?
Left.
Okay. So again, why did the fistula not mature? Why is no bruise heard beyond 5 centimeters of the site of fistula? And you're blaming the artery all the time. Why did it develop up to the 5 centimeters? So now you'll have to go back home and read about how do you test clinically and by Doppler the arterial sufficiency after you made sure that the LV function is okay, both systolic as well as diastolic. Once you've done that, you'll have to say, what are the signs if the fistula has a stenosis at the juxta anastomotic site? What are the signs that you will get if the stenosis or obstruction is at the 5 centimeters, as you say, and if the obstruction is in the draining vein in the central veins? There will be different. So you yourself, as all those other PGs that are listening, I request that you go and look at this. And one of the best guide is in Dr. Tushar Vachrajani's Atlas, which is available free on the net. Okay, so go on further. Go on, examine.
Yes, sir. Systemic examination. Sir.
Wait, in general examination, one very important thing, you did not tell me about what is the status of the amputated limb. Is the distal stump of the amputated limb okay, not okay, dressed, not dressed? Is he got an artificial leg? Is he using it, not using it? What?
Sir, it was dressed, sir. It was well dressed, sir. He was not using any artificial limb, sir. And it was the stump was okay. There was no ulcer or wound over the stump, sir.
Should you tell me in your general exam, or you should not?
So I should tell you.
Okay. So when you are estimating GFR, an amputee, how does the amputation affect the calculation of GFR?
Sir, because that part of the limb is not there, so there will be decreased muscle mass, sir. So the the creatinine estimation will not be correct, sir, of that patient, sir.
What will it be, low or high?
So creatinine will be low, sir.
You will estimate higher GFR, is it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So therefore, this is important to tell me about the amputation, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay, go on, Aage.
Sir, on respiratory system examination on infection, sir, so the respiration abdominothoracic chest movements are equal on both the sides. Right, I could see the right anal cuff catheter is.
Another important thing. When
Yes,
you are doing this examination, when you are presenting a case, therefore, you drive the examiner so rapidly to the final destination of diagnosis without go here and there, is to finish your presentation in 15 to 17 minutes without leaving gaps. Gaps that the examiner is looking for. I told you your presentation. So mine also this. So in an attempt to try to do very much more great detail of examination, you unnecessarily create problems. So look at, say, supposing I had to see respiratory, I would say upper respiratory is normal. I would say air entry in all areas of lung are normal. I would say it is vesicular breathing and there are no added sounds in any output. And the vocal compass is okay. That is how I would have completed.
Okay, Dr. Rajapurkar, sorry for interruption.
No problem. No problem, sir. Go ahead. Sir, go ahead. No problem. Rana, sir, go ahead. No problem. I think Dr. Rana wants to say something, please.
Yes, sir.
नहीं बात होगी मेरी.
Rana sir, you have to unmute and speak. Hello? Sir, you have to unmute and then you can speak.
हो रही डॉक्टर राणा की बात हो रही है. He is going to hospital. Please continue.
Okay. So if I thought Dr. Rana wanted to say something, that's why I had waited. Ishan, then you can complete your examination.
Sir, on serious examination, sir, is inspection on precordial buds, sir. S1, S2 are normal, no murmur heard, sir. And apex bit is 1 centimeter inside the midclavicular line, sir. Then for per abdominal examination on inspection, sir, there is no sparse and dilated wings. Umbilicus is central.
Ishan, wait.
Yes, sir.
Something important that you are said. You said the apex beat is inside the midclavicular line. Now here is a diabetic who has developed end-stage kidney disease, who is on dialysis for some time, and his heart is not dilated. That's what you're trying to. So this is completely contrary to my expectation. In an exam, I will get up and see. And for this heart to remain that small, unless the whole mediastinum is shifted on the other side, would be very, very odd. You be very careful about what you are saying, particularly if you are making a finding which is contrary to expectation. That is when the examiner will get up and examine. Do you realize? Can you now justify why this patient's heart is small? You would have expected it to be generous and large and not mean and small like mine. You already started thinking mine is small and mean, isn't it? Okay, I accept that as an examiner. That is what you should expect in them.
Yes, sir.
So you'll have to justify in an exam why this heart is not large.
Yes.
He has peripheral vascular disease, he has hypertension, he has diabetes, he has renal failure, he's on dialysis and his heart is not large. Do you believe that?
Yes.
Go back and see the patient again.
Yes.
Okay, go on.
For abdomen examination, no on inspection, sir, no sparse and dilated veins. Umbilicus is central. No on palpation, abdomen is soft, non-tender, no organomegaly, tempering notice present all over the abdomen. Sir, on CNS examination, sir, and
Wait. One of the things you said was ischemic nephropathy. You told me nothing about renal bruit. You didn't tell anything about iliac or aortic bruit. And this patient had to go for a transplant. You know nothing about what is happening in the abdominal vessels. And you don't talk of bruit. Now, see how important findings are missed and unimportant things get said. Okay, go on.
CNS examination, sir. Higher functions are normal. Cranial nerves are normal, sir. On sensory system examination, sir, only touch sensation is absent in right lobule up to the.
And wait, and wait. You can't just pass off as cranial nerves were normal without telling me details of fundus. You told me this fellow has diabetic retinopathy in the past, but you said nothing about fundus now and go to sensory system examination is not acceptable. In an exam, I would have actually expected you to draw a fundus of what you saw, and I would question you on that. Not seeing the fundus yourself is not acceptable. Particularly here is a patient. You didn't tell me about whether he underwent laser photocoagulation or not. He had decrease in the vision that time, you said. We don't know whether he has media are clear or not. Has he got a posterior polar cataract or not? And these things will have to be important in the exam. Now, supposing tomorrow, because the fistula is not developing, you will recommend CAPD. It's important to know what sort of eyesight he has, so that whether he is able to do the connection, disconnection of his CAPD or not becomes important. And that is why this is not an ophthalmology examination, but certain minimum amount. I expect you to tell me before you go further to sensory and motor and all that. Do you realize what is the problem?
Yes.
Important, relevant examination is not done.
Yes.
Go on. Complete it. Sensory system.
Yes, sir. This sensory system, sir, the touch sensation is absent in the right lower limb up to the tibia, sir, and vibration sense is absent in the right lower limb, sir. Vibration sensor. Then, sir, rest sensory system exam in the rest sensory system exam is normal, sir, and motor system, sir. Grade 5 power is present in both upper limb and lower limb, and ankle reflex is absent right lower limb.
Ishan, wait, I won't let you go ahead like that. Did you look for dissociate anesthesia? Why is that important? Because you had this patient who had a bladder problem. You assumed that it is diabetic. Supposing it was syrinx, then you would have missed.
Yes.
Then you did not do dissociate anesthesia in a patient who had retention of urine at 45 years of age. Right or wrong? He was advanced CIC after urodynamics. And then you don't do sensory examination of a dissociate anesthesia. It's not right. You don't tell me anything about, okay, I'll listen to it again. But here I would tell you that if you didn't tell me about the anal tone, about the perineal sensation specifically, of the cremasteric reflex specifically, that is incomplete examination, dear. And incomplete examination is neglect. Clear?
Yes.
Okay, go on.
Sir, motor systems are grade 5 power in both upper and lower limb. Ankle reflex is absent in right lower limb, sir. Ankle.
You completed your motor system examination?
Yes.
So then you didn't tell me anything about the nutrition in a patient who's on dialysis, about his muscle power, his muscle mass, his arm weight, nothing of that you mentioned. Here is a diabetic who's on dialysis, of which anthropometry and nutritional assessment of the muscle mass is equal to survival on dialysis. And that as a nephrologist, if you're not going to do in an examination, then your examination is deficient. Am I making myself very clear?
Yes, sir.
So if I cut marks, I would be justified in doing that, isn't it? I actually gave you a chance, a hint that have you all completed the motor system examination. But you didn't take that hint.
Yes.
Okay. So now in a final question, don't worry about the examination anymore. I've shown you where there are major pitfalls. Now, in a patient who's on maintenance dialysis, what are the guidelines saying about what do you do at each visit, at monthly, at 3 monthly checkups? What are the things that you do at each visit? Now, as soon as, have you connected patients on dialysis? Have you connected and disconnected patients on dialysis?
Once, twice, or not much. Sir, not sir, not I have not done sir, not currently sir. No.
How will you survive? Because dialysis for you as an nephrologist would be your bread, butter, jam, honey, and whether your wife keeps with you or goes away. Because your money is going to come from there. Do you feel bad about what I am saying?
Yes.
You should, and rectify it. So there is no point in me asking you questions about the dialysis machine, what you do on a day-to-day dialysis, what are the basic minimum that you see for a dialysis patient at each visit, how do you connect, how do you disconnect, how do you select a dialyzer, what are the ways in which you manage vascular flow, blood flow, how do you assess adequacy of dialysis? All those questions are not worth asking. Do you understand this? So make it a point before exam, read all this, make sure you go there. And there's a very detailed description of this given in the Indian Society Nephrology Hemodialysis Guidelines. Recently revised guidelines are there on the Indian Society website. And I recommend that you should go and see that. Along with the recent COVID guidelines also have been put up onto the Indian Society. I'm reasonably sure in your exams these questions would come, even if I am not the examiner. But if you pass through me, then, so what do you think you should get the number of marks? I started with 5 marks out of 10 before you uttered a word. So tell me how many are remaining out of those 5? In exam, you would have thought you had done a good presentation and that the examiner is Chingus gave me very little marks. That's what you would have thought when you went up. So thoroughness at postgraduate level is something which I expect certainly. And the basics you can't make a mistake on. Okay, Ishan, thank you very much. I had a greater soft corner for you because my grandson is also Ishan.
Okay.
So don't worry about that. Dr. Balla, I am through. Please take over, and if you want to ask further, please go ahead. Dr. Balla, please. Dr. Balla, you can come in, or anyone from the microlab. So.
Yes. Yes. Thank you, sir.
I think Balaji, yeah,
yes.
Balaji.
Yeah, this history is very important. Then examination and edema, autonomic neuropathy, urodynamic studies, then diagnosis. Then another thing is procedure. When you are discussing the procedure, don't say that cardiac arrhythmia you will diagnose by pushing the guide wire and then knowing the direction of guide wire and cardiac arrhythmias. And another thing is about the non-compliance. You said non-compliance of patient. In fact, what Dr. Mohan said was that is a physician failure if it is a non-compliance. Then whenever you are quoting the trials, you have to know how to quote a trial. So he has highlighted those points. Fistula examination is very important. Allen test you should do always. About the amputation, its effect on GFR, you should know. And very important point which has been highlighted is important relevant examination. So in every patient, you have to do relevant examination. Apart from the routine thing, you have to see, depending on the diagnosis, you have to mention about the relevant examination. And he highlighted about dissociative anesthesia, then every dialysis patient, kidney patient, you have to see the nutrition also. So you have to mention about nutrition of the patient. So overall, what he highlighted was it was a deficient examination of the patient. So I'm sure you have to stress more on the clinical part. Don't only go into the theory, but you see the examination, which diagnosis you have to fit the patient in.
Yes.
And with these words, I thank Dr. Mohan Rajaputta for excellent teaching. And I'm sure in future also, sir, you will be, on our request, you will definitely take more bedsides.
सर आप हुक्म करिए, मैं हाजिर हूँ. आपको ना
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. We all learned a lot. And there were, sir, 122 on direct on this bedside, and there were 36 on YouTube. So more than 150 students benefited from your bedside. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very
Yes.
much. Thank you to the
Yes. Mr. Raja?
Thank you, sir. Yes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Sir, I think if every examiner who is of but nevertheless, it's been a good. Thank you very much, Dr. Mohan Rajaputta, session students. I think today's level we have reached about 150, sir. We are targeting 200 and speed and encourage this session. Thank you very much, Dr. Balaji, for coordination of the session, sir. Thank you, one and all. Thank you, Dr. Shantu.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.